And Jeff Wilhelm introduced it to us. He said he proposed that writers create cues for readers to make sense of what they read. And another reading specialist, Peter, I think it's Rabinowitz, he said that these cues can be labeled rules of notice. And if we use rules of notice in the classroom, it will help our students learn to read like experts. This is what experts do to make sense, to make meaning. Okay? So let's just look at this quote. Will somebody read the quote? Okay, thank you so much, Jada. And then will you help us understand how you make sense of this quote? How you determined what it meant.
The most powerful thing we can provide to our students is strategic knowledge, a knowledge of the procedures people use to learn, to think, to read, to communicate, and to compose. I kind of see this as the idea is we need to teach our students how to practice a skill so that no matter what situation they find themselves in, their skills can still apply. So it's not like I can answer a question, but I can read a question and figure out how to answer it.
Okay, so what skill did you use to come up with that? Like, how did you pull that out of that quote?
I used my impressive vocabulary.
Okay, so what words stood out to you?
Strategic knowledge, knowledge of the procedures. I guess strategic knowledge and procedures really stood out to me.
Okay.
And then that list of learn, think, read, communicate, and compose just kind of gave you the process of the procedure of it.
Thank you so much. So she noticed strategic knowledge right away. And you'll notice that the writer put it in italics so that you would notice it.
And he called it powerful.
So something I did when I was reading this was like made a connection to like what have I done lately to help my students do this. So I'm trying to make a prior connection. So I was thinking I used the recent Stanford study that said that 82% of middle school students could not tell sponsored ads from real news. And so we did a whole process of like how to figure out if things are real or fake or how to figure out. But that was like what I did when I read this was like, okay, what am I doing right now? How am I applying it? Because that's not enough to just understand this to apply it. So like Jada used vocabulary, I've tried to make a connection.
Prior knowledge and a connection with what you're doing in the classroom. Thank you so much. This is what expert readers do. And so we're going to look at this article. This is a piece of nonfiction. And so we're going to look at these rules of notice, and we're going to notice things about this article before we even start to read it. I'm going to model for you the first 3, and then I want you, if you would like to, choose another one later on and say, oh, I noticed this about this particular one. So the first is delivery. And if Marianne moves us to the next, thank you, and you click on rules of notice, it will take you. So when I looked at this article, I thought, where did this article come from? And so I just entered the title and it led me to this website. This is ASCD is an organization that's dedicated to excellence in learning, teaching, and leading. So I know that this is probably a peer-reviewed article by professionals about learning or teaching. The second thing that I noticed as I looked over this description is that the members are superintendents, principals, teachers, and advocates from more than 138 countries. So that I thought, okay, this article isn't just for teachers, it's also for administrators. So perhaps they're looking at classroom observations from both perspectives, from an administrator's perspective and a teacher's. So that's what I did with the delivery. I also determined that this is probably an argument. Wilhelm proposes that all nonfiction is an argument of sorts because they're trying to convince you of their idea or their thought or their knowledge. The second is the title and subtitle. Tell us where to focus our attention. So I'm looking at the titles, and it says Professional Learning Reimagined, Rethinking Classroom Observation. So from that title, I would think, oh, this is going to be a new way of looking at classroom observations. There's something that they're trying to have me look at classroom observations in a different way. The third rules of notice is the context. Consider the setting, the time, place, as well as the intended audience. And we talked about how I thought that it was probably not just for teachers, but also for observers or people who went into the classroom to observe. And you'll notice that it's May 2014. So it's a fairly recent article that was written that we can propose that it's up to date on new methods or new ideas. All right, so that's how I would use these rules of notice to give me a framework for this text before I've even started. So would one of you or any of you who would like to look at any of the others and share what you noticed as a result? And do you have a thought?
I was just thinking, what a cool way to help our students know how to annotate. Because we did this with poetry, we gave them steps, and so they first do the title and they do it off that. But I've never tried something quite like this for a nonfiction text. I've given them, okay, like what things are surprising to you. We're gonna mark that with our little markings. But this is a really cool way. Pick 4 of these things, and that's what you're gonna annotate. Because so many of our students are just at a loss for what to mark when they're first annotating. Once they get it, they kind of understand how to navigate that. But this is a great way to help our beginning annotators.
Thank you so much. When we took this class, it was a master's class, and he helped us to see how these rules of notice, you could use them for a character. You could use them. We each created our own rules of notice, and I did mine for reading a script. And it helped me to see elements in the script that I had never considered before. So it really deepens your thinking. Yes?
I really like this because we do a little thing in my social studies class at the very beginning, and I teach them basically like how to read a textbook, if you will, especially because we're in history, so a lot of the stuff you're going to be reading is nonfiction. And as I'm looking over this list, I'm like, oh yeah, we talk about that, and we talk about this, and we also talk about that. And so some of these things, like I'm already teaching to them about how to read nonfiction. But I like that there's this handout now, because I'm totally going to go and make a bunch of these and then teach this to them again, because, you know, reteaching never hurts.
No, honestly, and once we understand that it's not that it's not that they're, you know, that maybe they don't know how to read it. And so they feel stupid. They think they can't read. But once they know this, they move here, and it builds a sense of self-efficacy in all readers.
I love this because I don't know how to annotate nonfiction specifically. I mean, yeah, I know, like
Sure.
I know, but I don't know what I'm doing. I've not paid attention to the strategies that I use to read nonfiction. And when I read, now that, you know, that I'm focusing on reading, and now that I'm a teacher, I look at the ways that I read, and I notice the strategies that I use. And then when I talk to my students about the strategies that I'm teaching, I can say, so when I was reading this article for my class, or when I was reading this book that was really hard for me, I did this strategy, and this is what readers do. This is what real readers do, and this is what you can do when you're reading.
That's
And
right.
I love it.
That's right. You see, you understand.
And I'm just envisioning, like, even we were just talking, you know, for her 5th graders, how you could even break these down into like specific questions that they could answer. Not, you know, they're not literally answering it, but for instance, typography. Why did the person italicized that. And so not only are you saying, okay, there's italics here, but your note should say like, I think that they italicized because, and that would be really good for those beginning steps where this, I can hand even my 8th graders and say, okay, follow this. But in that young age that they could have a lot of structure and cut down and put 3 things on your page with a bunch of guiding steps.
Mhm.
And I think that's gonna be, I don't know, yeah, take 3 exactly and just break it down in
And break it
pieces.
down.
So you can see how this would work across
Honestly.
from our youngest ages to our 12th graders.
Thank you
beyond.
so much. So I want each pair to choose one of the other ones and just decide how you'll share what you noticed with the rest of the group.
Which one we gonna do? But we're not a pair. I don't know.
I like beginnings and endings. I really like that because.
Okay, let's do it then.
All right.
Sure.
Because we're beginning of it. And you can, beginnings and endings. The thing with it,
one
like
would you
getting
choose?
it, you can base about the author says that everything is written really, the author's craft. Every nonfiction artist is an artist of some sort, they are making a claim.
Let's.
And then they use various keywords to get their claim across. And so.
Well, that sounds exactly what we've talked about before with your class, logos, pathos.
And that's what, so, ask questions about whether the piece relies on logic, emotion, ethics.
Case study, if you will.
Or a combination in order to, so like reading through and seeing like how are they trying to persuade you that they're correct about what.
How about Maria?
Are they trying to get you to feel in? I feel like a lot of social studies texts use a lot of statistics.
Oh, yeah.
But,
Mm.
texts like these tend to use a lot of handouts and ESOP, I mean, look at these, lots of pages. Not only their citations, but then this person is principal of education and consulting. This person, you know.
Yeah, it's already argued.
This
Oh, yeah, well, and I mean.
Also-
That's not.
Also, it immediately
really
establishes the
that
problem
Very
you've
first
got.
citation,